right. Well, good afternoon, good morning, and good evening, everyone. Really excited to be chatting with one of the best and the brightest here on Win-Loss Week. And my name is Richard Sgro. I am the general manager at Modern Sales Pros. And today I'll be sharing this amazing stage with my main man, Austin Bankhead. Austin, I'm really excited to be chatting with you here today. Why don't you just share a little bit about yourself with our audience out there in TV land?
Sure. Richard, thanks for joining me today. Just a little bit about me. I've had about 20 years of experience in business-to-business sales and marketing after starting my career at McKinsey and Price Waterhouse in consulting. So I found my way over to the revenue side of the house, and it's been great ever since. I worked in a range of sort of sales-related support functions in marketing and analytics, in setting up measurement systems and planning, and then spent some time in Adobe helping with industry marketing and strategy, doing pre-sales consulting with some of the Adobe's major customers. And that was really at Adobe where I started to work more closely with global sales teams in more significantly sized business-to-business transactions, and it helped me to understand sort of the environment in which sales teams operate and which marketing teams operate, and the intersection between those two functions and disciplines and product, et cetera. When I was at Adobe, I got a note one day in the mail from a guy named Jared Smith, who turned out to be one of the founders of Qualtrics. And long story short, they pulled me out of Adobe, and I spent 6 years at Qualtrics, starting out in the marketing function and then moving over, being tapped to build a new sales operations organization for the company in middle of 2013. And that fateful tap really changed my life and career and gave me the introduction to sales operations. And so since that time, I've been working in that function. I worked in Qualtrics until 2018, and then for a year and a half, worked at another unicorn company in the fintech space called Snap Finance, building their sales revenue operations organizations from scratch as well. And then I currently work for a company that I founded called Unicorn Revenue Operations, which advises companies on how to reach unicorn status. And one of those ways is having a great revenue operations function. So that's a little bit about my background. And I've been privileged to work with some great people and great companies in my career, especially in the tech space. And so hopefully some of my experience today I could share and be relevant for some of the viewers and listeners.
I think that this is going to be awesome. So with that amazing introduction, Austin, let's jump into it.
Okay.
So how did you guys start thinking about win-loss? Right. There's a lot of sessions about this week, but really, why should an organization start to build out and think about building a win-loss program?
Well, there are a lot of reasons. When we were at Qualtrics, when I started there, I had pieces of sales operations or revenue operations, but really was not familiar with the entire discipline. And Qualtrics didn't really have a sales operations function to speak of. They had the pieces or parts of it have been run by the sales leaders, and they've done a fairly good job for the resources they had. But we were in a stage where we had just received some outside funding from Sequoia and Excel. The pressure was on to grow at double-digit rates every quarter. And so as a new sales operations leader, I was trying to figure out what in the world I was supposed to do. And so did web research, talked to other sales operations leaders, and something that would continue to come up was that it was a good idea to do win-loss interviews or win-loss studies. And having spent some time before that in market research when I was in marketing, I understood the benefit of customer surveys, of focus groups, of basically getting a third-party group or independent group to talk to prospects to truly understand their needs and what was going on. So it sort of resonated with me, and I thought, well, this is kind of this is a best practice that someone in sales operations should do. So I started looking into how to resource it, the benefits of it, and sort of how to make that happen, either through interviews or surveys, which we had a pretty effective survey platform. So I figured it would be fairly straightforward to do.
It's definitely an interesting time too, because at that point, about a half a decade ago, sales ops was still kind of a new discipline. So it's an exciting value add that you can bring to the table.
Yeah, it's I was new. I think you're right. The sales operations discipline has progressed enormously. I didn't know what it was when they asked me to do the job. I had to go figure it out, and I had a very good mentor in the worldwide head of sales to help me understand what some of the needs were. But yeah, I think what we anticipate is we thought that the win-loss the insights from win-loss would actually help us in the sales team and help us to improve our win rates, to figure out what we might be doing poorly, or where things that we were trying to do were not actually working well. So getting some real-time feedback and some objective feedback of how our efforts in enablement and pricing and coaching that would implemented, messaging, how those were resonating in our sales effort. There were a couple of things going on sort of a few years after I started that really ended up being important to Qualtrics's growth. Qualtrics had just launched 2 new products in the employee engagement space, and a really dedicated product in the customer experience space. And we're trying to sell into bigger companies and make that jump that many companies do, to go from a very transactional selling motion. We were almost all inside sales, making that jump into bigger deals and figuring out how to make that transition. And that's very challenging for any company, and it was for us as well. And so we ended up getting some insights and help on how to make that from the feedback from prospective customers.
Oh, I think that's great, and Qualtrics certainly a very, very successful run there. One of the things that I hear a lot about win-loss programs is it's a lot of work. Is this kind of an all or nothing investment, or is there maybe a lightweight approach that a smaller company, right? Qualtrics is decently sized when you're there, but is this something that smaller companies should be doing too?
I would say yes, and I think that there are several levels of maturity to running a program, and we did not start out running a best-in-class program. We had some fits and starts. There are a couple of things kind of on the process side and on the people side. I'll start with process because I'm in sales ops, so let me start there. But then I'll talk about some of the people challenges. We wanted to partner with our client success organization to try to understand, for client success, why were customers leaving? Why was our attrition rate or expansion rate lower than we wanted it to be? And then on the sales side, we had the typical questions: why are we winning? Why are we losing? What do we know about our product? But we already had in Salesforce kind of a reason the deals got lost when people marked deals lost. But we did some analysis, and we found out that it was all due to price and product. There was nothing else going on. So that would be kind of the minimum, is at least ask the question. But what we quickly learned and realized is that that's barely better than nothing. Just because it's hard for reps to be objective and really know, why did we lose a deal, or what really contributed to the win? We then talked about doing surveys to our reps to try to be more proactive in getting information, and even to our customers. But Richard, we realized there's some real value in getting an independent party to speak to the prospective customer, whether you won or you lost. And if you think about it in your own life, you are probably more likely to be candid with someone with whom you may not have a future relationship or an ongoing relationship. It's just easier for someone to just level and shoot straight with someone that's considered an objective third party. And so we started small, Richard. I think our first kind of pilot, we did just, 30 interviews. And you could start with 15 and you could do 10, but we just started just to try to see, gosh, what can we learn from a win-loss program? And then we already had some level of surveying going on. And so that was sort of the process side, so small. We engaged an outside firm. There are several to choose from, and we started to get, so anyway, I was all excited. I had it all ready to go. So the people side was really where I got surprised. I remember, we had a bi-weekly or every week staff meeting with the senior sales leaders, the global, and I came in, I had time on the agenda, and I explained, hey, we're going to do this win-loss. I'd like to do this win-loss. This is all the reasons to do it. This is how we'll do it. We'll select these deals, we'll use big ones. And I was expecting the sales leaders to be like, hey, finally, Austin's bringing us something that we can really value here. And the reaction was kind of like, yeah, it wasn't exactly, high fives or fist bumps. It's kind of like, yeah, maybe, but not. Do we really? And they kind of move on. And I was pretty deflated. Just I thought, here's this great thing we're trying to do, and sales is not very excited about it. And so upon introspection, there were some reasons for that, and really valid ones. And we worked to overcome some of that indifference. Maybe is probably the best word. And the trick was we did something though, and we did a pilot, and we got some really neat insights coming back after 6 months, and that sort of was the catalyst to help us move from maybe a level 1 or a level 2 type program to a more sophisticated, sustainable program that continues to yield insights.
I think that's great advice, and I think with programs like win-loss, organizations can look at that and go, oh, it's not for me, we're too small or we're too little. But I think that's a phenomenal point. You can start by starting, and maybe for organizations that don't even have the reason why it was closed, lost, field, and Salesforce, I mean, that's a starting point. It's a little bit of something, and it gives you some insight on this. But I wanted to double click in a little bit more. Being a recovering sales leader, I know we're not necessarily the easiest group to sell to. What was the biggest challenge that you dealt with in terms of starting to roll this out? Was it more on the people side, or was it on the process side, or was it kind of a little bit of both?
It was a bit of both. Let me talk about the people side, because at the end of the day, we work with people in sales, especially we work with people that and really one of the reasons why the sales leaders at times can be indifferent or maybe not as supportive as you might expect have to do with the fact that they're people and they work with people. And for example, sales leaders, they're very, and I say sales, men, women, sales leadership and their reps, they're protective and proud of the relationships they have with customers.
Very territorial. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's why they have their work. Their job is to bring in revenue for the company. And so when they have someone that maybe comes in, whether it's another part of the organization or an outside party, and they might fear that their competency or their relationships could be at risk or be questioned. They're put up a little bit of a wall, and sometimes they think that their reps know, or they just don't want sort of your nose in their business, so to speak, even coming from sales operations, and we sat within the sales team. And so they had some reticence, and it wasn't until we be able to show them that the insights from a win-loss program could actually drive something that they care a lot about, which is hitting their number. And
it's funny how that works.
Support, helping coach their reps, and help get support from the rest of the company for investments in product and in technology and in other types of enablement to help them be more successful. It's kind of like when we found that, Richard, that the win-loss insights helped generate support from the C-suite for the sales organization. That was a benefit that I did not anticipate and I hadn't read about, but we learned that the win-loss insights actually empowered and gave the sales leadership more strength and more input in the company than they may have had before. And that was kind of a neat insight, and help them see that not only is this not a threat to them, but it is a way for them to validate, and it often validates what they've been telling the rest of the organization, but that the organization is kind of like, yeah, I don't really buy it, and they point the finger at sales, when more often than not, it was like, hey, we have some issues around our product or about the support we have that is preventing our salespeople from winning more enterprise deals, and the lights started to go on.
No, I think that's a great added benefit of this. This transparency fosters this culture of, I don't want to say sympathy, but understanding of the sales discipline.
Yeah,
Oftentimes sales,
yeah.
And I think oftentimes what you see is sales is kind of over here, and then you've got everybody else in the company that's like, oh, those guys and gals, they get paid a ton of money. They just need to make more cold calls or do more Wolf of Wall Street stuff, whatever they're doing over there.
Yeah.
But you're really right. This brings some data to the discussion. You've got a great story with what you did at Qualtrics. So let's jump into that a little bit more, because it wasn't like you jumped in and you figured everything out. I think you said you started with a pilot. So let's talk a little bit more about how you kind of got things going, and then we can talk about how that evolved over the time.
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, we started with a pilot. We had about 30 interviews, and then our client success team had about half as many. And there's a little bit of a setup. You need to go and figure out, okay, which of the deals that we've won or lost are going to be evaluated, and what's the role of the salespeople or sales management in agreeing that we can do that evaluation. Again, they have the relationship and they have information that might be germane to who we survey or who we interview and who we don't. We needed to engage a firm. There was a time lag between the time we send the deal out and we have to call them and talk to them and interview them and get the insight back. So there were a few process things that we needed to work out. Where I think things really started to pop for us is when we got our first round of research back, and we shared it with not only sales leadership, but with other leadership in the company. And we found insights around 5 different areas that really helped us see the value of this. We had insight on our sales process. We saw that our salespeople were perceived as good and friendly and reliable. We had some kind of mixed feedback on how well we demoed. It was very inconsistent about how we showed our products. We learned the value of a prior relationship with our customers, and then that seemed to be a trend where it would sort of like give us credit for areas maybe we weren't as strong in on these new products because they had seen better success with our earlier ones. We got great product feedback. Our product managers started just like lap this stuff up because now they had customer quotes and more real use case information of where maybe we had fallen short vis-a-vis our competitors. You know, another interesting thing about Qualtrics is that we found is as we were going enterprise, we had a very strong do-it-yourself culture within our company and within our product. You do your own market research, or you're doing your own customer experience research in the company as opposed to engaging an outside party. And we found that in the enterprise space, that was hurting us a bit compared to some of our other competitors. And so we're like, oh yeah, we actually might need to beef up our capabilities or our offering to be able to provide some of those services that maybe we thought we wouldn't be needed in earlier times. So we picked up a lot of insights, and then now it's like, now I don't have to just do budget for 30. The next year we did 50. Because now people are like, oh yeah, this stuff can actually work, and our process gets a little better, and we learn how to share the insights in the company a little better. And now people are starting to, instead of like, what's this? They're like, hey, when do you have any insights on this from the customers? And so now we start getting some motion and engagement across the company.
I think it's phenomenal about how that success kind of breeds success. And then I imagine at that point too, you saw the walls drop down a little bit, and the territorialness maybe that sales had before was just like, no, give us more.
Yeah, that happened. We had our first phase, and we did our second phase, and that led to more success. And as I wound down my time at Qualtrics as head of sales ops, I remember planning for the next year of win-loss, and we had more budget, we had more schedule. We had sales leaders like vying for us to do interviews with their deals in Asia and Europe. And look, I want this, and they know I want this. And so then we have like a few extra interviews we can save and reserve, but they wanted that. And we had a better process to get the permission and get the information to the third party that did the interviews in a more timely manner. And so we found another vendor that gave us a better service and use more technology. And so a lot of these things just kind of snowball effect. And now I think last year they did probably around, I don't know, somewhere around 125, 150 type interviews. So it's a substantial investment, but that's because they see the value that's there.
Yeah, and echoing a point you made earlier, you just start by starting, right? It can start small from humble beginnings. Would you interview your first time? 15?
Yeah, we did like 30, and that was
small.
You can do fewer than that.
Yeah, I think this is great, and I love this story here. But what, right? Like, how did this actually help? You mentioned before helping salespeople make more money. What did you get, and how did the organization evolve that helps folks understand, like, hey, this actually moved the needle quite a bit on this set of priorities?
Yeah, I think that we saw some sustained benefits on the marketing side. If there happen to be any people in marketing to listen to this, you often struggle to get case studies, and you also may struggle on what to say or how to message things. We on it, we would receive from our win-loss feedback, whether we did it in surveys or we did it with interviews, third-party interviews, very discrete feedback on what messaging was resonating. And they gave us some case study examples that we otherwise would not have had from the sales team. And you can just, and real quotes, like, you're not making up a quote, you're getting some really good verbatim quotes from prospective buyers that are telling you where you win and where you lose, and what's good about your product and what's not. And that helps you in terms of knowing what to say. On our product side, we had a couple of events at Qualtrics when one of our products that we had launched had in a quarter or over a couple of quarters fell short of expectations. And one of our founders led an effort to do a wholesale evaluation of what was going on with the product. And it turns out that one of the ingredients in that was the interviews and the surveys about deals were win or loss. So this got founder C-level attention. And that was a resource that we could use when evaluating how successful our products were. We were able to receive more support and funding to hire more sales engineers, because we realized that for our enterprise team, that was necessary for us to do better and more effective demos and value selling. We had challenges at times because our culture was the rep does the demo himself or herself, and had they done it successfully for years, it worked really well for transactional selling. We had a challenge getting the resourcing. Funny, we started to learn, and win-loss contributed to that sales engineers were a critical part of our enterprise play. And so we found with another resource issue, client success. One of the feedback from our client success early interviews was that we didn't really have the ongoing relationship and account management skills that we needed with some of these bigger clients. Well, that was one of the ingredients to help us develop a more robust client success outcome. So many of the key things that developments in product and marketing and sales that led to Qualtrics' continued growth, 40-50% year-over-year growth every quarter, that culminated in a really successful outcome for the company, and they continue to be a fantastic company. Many of those things were influenced by the insights that we received from our prospects, both wins and losses, that came through this program.
I think that's a really great, there's a bunch of great examples in there, but some of this, there's really no way you would have known had you not done.
No. My vision for what this could do was, I guess, kind of more narrow, just in why are we losing deals, not at a rep level. And I didn't anticipate the cross-functional benefit of a good program like this.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're making headcount investments to start to solve problems that you're seeing in the sales process, whether it's with customer success or sales engineers. I mean, that's a really strategic way to address a problem that your prospects, are encountering. I think that's a really important takeaway here. All right, well, we've kind of talked about what you did at Qualtrics. We've talked about why this is important, obviously the value from it, but like, what is, if I'm building this from scratch today, what are some of the elements of a successful win-loss program, or what are some of the things that you feel like are incredibly important for someone to have when building this?
Yeah, I'd say that I'm thinking this. I think there's about 5 things that and we can share these with the group later as well. But the first thing is you want to do a mix of interviews and so qualitative types and quantitative survey type feedback. This will help you get more deals covered less expensively and allow you to generate enough sample size so when you go to the rest of the company, you say, I don't just cite like 5 or 6 examples. You have enough that people start to see themes and patterns emerge that help drive decisions. And so the interviews are more costly and they require more work, but you can supplement with survey platform, whether you use Qualtrics or something else. It's inexpensive and it can be an effective way to gather insight. So you need to do surveys and interviews. That would be kind of the first thing. With regard to interviews, some companies try to have the salespeople visit or maybe a marketing person. That seems like a great way to do it and less expensive, but I think you'll find 2 things. First of all, doing these things takes time and you will not get to it. You will not actually make the time to do the interviews. And the second thing is the quality of the feedback that you receive will not be as good. You're not as trained as a third-party partner, and the interviewees will not be as candid with you if you do it themselves, because they don't. It's harder for them to speak freely. So use a third party. The third one is to over time build a streamlined process to select the deals that you want to be evaluated and to get the feedback mechanism started. Sometimes if you close a deal in June and you don't get the survey done until December, you've lost 6 months of really valuable insight that you could have used to drive your business in that time frame. So you need to compress that. To get the right deal, compress the time. And then last but certainly not least, make the effort as a revenue ops leader to be strategic. This is a great way to get yourself a bigger seat at the table. Take those insights, synthesize them, and then make sure that they get delivered to people who will use them. And when I say delivered, minimum is send them an email or forward them an email with a PDF. A better way to do it is to sit down, find 30 minutes on the calendar, and help them understand what is the win-loss program, why are you doing it, the insights that you think would be relevant and resonate with them. That is a great way to build momentum for the program, but also deliver value and again, elevate yourself as a true strategic partner to the revenue team, whether you're reporting to a head of sales or a head of CRO, et cetera.
I think that last piece is incredibly important. This is an organizational effort, right? It's not just that sales didn't make enough cold calls or the product was missing this widget or the marketing messaging was off by this. It is each one of those pieces gets the ship moving in the right direction more quickly. I think that's a great point to mention here. So Austin, I know you've pulled this together. We've touched on a lot of different topics here. Do you want to just share your slides quickly and just give folks a couple of the key points? We've hit on all of these folks, but Austin did a great job just pulling together a couple of the key points that we hit on here, and he's going to take you through those just real quickly. And I think we're going to share these afterwards as well.
Yeah, sure. So for those listening on the call, if you're a visual person, that might help you. First slide here, this is just some keys to an effective program. This is kind of what you want to do when you get to a fully scaled program. As we talked about earlier, don't let your fear or lack of resources prevent you from at least starting. Start doing number one, start doing number two. The other ones will follow. And then you can start to have the ongoing success and impact that we've described during this session. At the beginning of the session, we talked about why sales leaders or other people might be indifferent or even opposed to putting in a win-loss program. So if you look at these slides here, the first three really relate to the fear or worry of sales leaders and reps that this program will be perceived as intrusive or threatening or critical of the work that they're doing. And nothing could be further from the truth, but you need to have the discussion with your sales leadership and help them see this is almost like a coach. We think of great athletes that we read about in the paper that win competitions. They all have coaches. They're all really good. They're better than any of us will ever be at tennis or whatever it is, golf, whatever, but they need coaches. And think of this as a way to get coaching from your customers and prospects. Sometimes other investments in revenue ops takes priority, especially in a fast-growing company. You might be putting in a sales enablement automation system, sales intelligence system. You're doing some type of messaging campaign. You can get these started for not too much. In fact, and these win-loss programs, I guarantee you they will have an impact on your win rate. You will find insights and get resourcing to help you win more. The fifth is the program cost. These can be expensive. An interview can be $1,000 to $2,000 depending on how you set it up. Several things to think about here. The first is whatever your average deal size is, how many extra one deals will pay for this cost? Number two, the second one is what improvement in your win rate will justify this? So think about like just the modest improvements that would be required to pay for it. And then the third is that, you could run a really good program for like the cost of hiring an SDR or an AE. And think about, hey, if we can improve our win rates or get insight about our product or get support for extra resources, is this the type of justification to help get this program off the ground and started? The sixth are doubts about accuracy of the insights. This has a lot to do with sample size that I talked about earlier. So making sure you do have enough insight so it's not dismissed as anecdotes, but you start to see patterns and trends. And then the seventh is just being unsure of actually how to put all the pieces together and execute it. Sometimes that's even a resourcing issue for sales operations. So those are very overcomable as well. You can talk to outside companies or former sales ops leaders like I guess me, or people that other colleagues you have on how to put that together. But it's very overcomable. So those are kind of the 7 obstacles that you might typically see. And then last, why do this? At the end of the day, this is the whole point, right? You want to learn the truth about why deals are won or lost. And the best source of the truth, it's not people inside the company. It's not the salespeople. They can inform it. The best source are the people that actually made the decision about whether or not to buy your product. And it turns out that they will talk to you. They will talk to you, and they'll shoot straight with you. You find insights for one-on-one coaching and enablement. This is really the rep-specific benefit of doing a win-loss program. The third thing, you can secure support for additional resources. We talked about sales engineers. We talked about enablement. We talked about messaging. Talked about client success staff. So it helps your CFO and your CEO hear, not just from you, from the sales leadership or the marketing leadership, but from prospective customers. Hey, this is why we did not buy from you. You dropped the ball here, here, and here. There is nothing like that kind of story to motivate introspection and resource prioritization. Number 4, you get insights that shape the rest of your company, product pricing, marketing, etc. And then the last thing, which got to think about the impression that your company leaves with a prospective customer from whom you have just lost a deal. If you care enough to find out and ask for their feedback, it leaves the door open for a future relationship with that company. If the supplier that they chose over you drops the ball, or it comes up to RFP again, you just left a very positive impression from them that you care about their feedback and you care about the relationship or future relationship you have with that customer. So those are some reasons all put together why I think, in my experience, a compelling win-loss program is a must-have for a revenue operations leader. So Richard, back to you.
This is really informative stuff. Austin, I know you're incredibly busy. Thank you for taking some time to pull this all together. And certainly I think that in combination with the slides and the talk track here, this is very, very valuable resource. So with that, on behalf of everyone who's watching, asynchronously here, on behalf of the team at Modern Sales Pros, I'm glad I had a chance to be involved with this, but Austin especially, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to share all of this amazing insight.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me here.